The morning sun cast long shadows across the bustling streets of Neo-Seoul as Kang Woo positioned his battered wheelchair at his usual spot. The year 2157 had brought flying cars and holographic billboards. But some things never changed. People still needed to eat, still needed hope, and still walked past those who were different without a second glance. Woo's fingers trembled slightly as he adjusted the small amplifier his mother had bought him for his birthday. It wasn't much, just a basic sound booster that could barely compete with the roar of hover traffic above. But it was everything to him. His legs, twisted and weak since birth, couldn't carry him anywhere, but his voice could soar, higher than any spacecraft in the sky. Another day, another song. He whispered to himself, clearing his throat. The familiar ache in his chest reminded him of the treatments he'd never received, the surgeries his family couldn't afford. His mother, Lenore, worked 18-hour shifts at 3 different jobs just to keep food on their table. Neural enhancement therapy that could fix his legs cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. The first commuters of the day hurried past, their expensive clothes and neural implants gleaming in the artificial light. Some dropped coins into his collection cup without even looking. Others pretended not to see him at all. But when we began to sing, something magical happened. His voice rose above the city's chaos like a phoenix breaking free from chains. The melody he chose wasn't from any databank or streaming service. It came from somewhere deeper, somewhere that existed before humans ever looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. The notes seemed to bend and twist in ways that shouldn't have been possible, creating harmonies that made people stop mid-stride. A businessman talking loudly on his neural communicator suddenly went quiet. A group of teenagers racing to catch the morning shuttle slowed their steps. Even the delivery drones hovering overhead seemed to pause, their sensors detecting something unusual in the sound waves flowing through the air. What none of them knew was that 30 stories above, in the gleaming tower of Huan Industries, something extraordinary was happening. The company's surveillance network, designed to monitor every corner of the city for security threats, had been recording Wu's performances for months. But it wasn't corporate security that was interested in the disabled boy's voice. Dr. Kim Soo, the company's lead xenolinguist, stared at her holographic display in complete disbelief. The wave patterns dancing across her screen shouldn't have been possible. For the past 6 months, humanity had been receiving mysterious signals from deep space. Transmissions that seemed to follow patterns too complex for random noise but too alien for human understanding. Every attempt to decode them had failed, until now. The vocal frequencies coming from the street corner below matched the alien transmissions with 97% accuracy. Not the words, not the meaning, but the actual mathematical relationships between the sound waves. It was as if this teenage boy, sitting in a wheelchair singing for pocket change, was somehow naturally producing the same communication patterns as an advanced alien civilization. This is impossible, Sue whispered, running the analysis for the 5th time. Her hands shook as she zoomed in on the frequency charts. The boy's voice was creating harmonics that their most advanced computers couldn't replicate. Somehow, his damaged vocal cords and unique breathing patterns were generating the exact tonal combinations that the alien signals contained. Back on the street, Wu continued singing, unaware that his voice was being analyzed by quantum computers and alien language experts. A small crowd had gathered round him, their faces showing the same wonder that had kept him singing through 3 years of rain, snow, and blazing summer heat. He sang of distant worlds and impossible dreams, of creatures that swam through clouds of gas between stars, of machines that thought and loved and feared just like humans did. His song spoke of unity in a galaxy torn apart by war, of the beauty found in broken things, of how the weakest voices sometimes carried the strongest truths. The melody wrapped round the listeners like a warm embrace, making them forget their troubles for just a few precious minutes. As the song ended, applause rippled through the small crowd. Coins clinked into his collection cup, but more importantly, people smiled at him, really smiled. Not the pitying looks he usually received. For those brief moments, he wasn't the disabled boy begging for change. He was an artist, a storyteller, a voice that could touch souls. High above in her laboratory, Dr. Sue made a decision that would change everything. She reached for her communicator to contact Park Jin, the billionaire CEO who had funded humanity's first attempts at alien contact. The boy singing on the street corner might be the key to understanding the greatest mystery in human history. Neither Wu nor the corporate scientists above knew that across the galaxy, ancient beings had been listening to Earth's transmissions for decades, waiting for a sign that humans were ready for contact. They had been searching for a species capable of true emotional communication, something their own technology had lost long ago. And in a small corner of Seoul, they had finally found their answer. The sleek black hover car descended from the sky, like a metallic bird, its anti-gravity engines humming with barely contained power. Pedestrians on the busy Seoul street stopped and stared as the luxury vehicle settled gracefully onto the landing pad near Wu's usual corner. The doors opened with a soft hiss, and out stepped a man who looked like he owned half the world. Park Jin was not what most people expected from a billionaire. At 45, he still had the lean build of the engineer he'd once been. Before his revolutionary quantum computers had made him one of the richest people on Earth. His simple black suit cost more than most families spent in a year, but his eyes held a warmth that money couldn't buy. Those same eyes were now focused entirely on the young man in the wheelchair. Wu had been singing a particularly haunting melody about stars calling to each other across the void when the hovercar arrived. His voice trailed off as he watched the wealthy stranger approach, his collection cup suddenly feeling very small in his hands. Rich people didn't usually walk up to street performers, especially not ones who arrived in vehicles that could buy a small space station. "Your voice," Jin said softly, crouching down so he could look Wu in the eyes. "It's the most beautiful thing I've heard in 20 years of space exploration." Wu blinked in confusion. "Space exploration, sir. I just sing for a coins. I'm nobody special." Jin's smile was gentle, but his words carried the weight of someone who had just discovered the key to humanity's future. "You're wrong about that, Wu. You're probably the most important person on this planet right now, and you don't even know it." Over the next hour, sitting in a nearby cafe, the Jin had quietly asked his security team to clear out. The billionaire explained everything. 3 months ago, humanity's deep space monitoring stations had detected signals from the Kepler system, 47 light-years away. The transmissions weren't random cosmic noise. They were clearly artificial, clearly intelligent, and clearly trying to communicate. "We've had our best scientists, our most advanced AI systems, and quantum computers worth billions of credits trying to decode those signals," Jin explained, showing Wu holographic displays of the alien transmissions. Nothing worked. The mathematical patterns were too complex, too organic somehow. Wu stared at the dancing wave patterns floating in the air between them. "They look like music," he said quietly. "Exactly." Jin leaned forward, his excitement barely contained. "Not just music, but the same kind of music you create when you sing. Your vocal patterns match their transmissions with incredible accuracy. Somehow, your voice can naturally produce the exact frequencies these aliens use to communicate. The weight of what Jin was saying slowly sank in. Wu's hands trembled as he processed the information. You're saying that aliens have been trying to talk to us, and my voice is the only thing that can understand them. Not just understand them, Jin replied. Talk back to them. We've been broadcasting responses for weeks with no success. But yesterday, Dr. Kim Soo ran your vocal patterns through our translation matrix. If we're right, you could become humanity's first alien translator. Wu's mind raced with possibilities and fears. But I'm just a disabled kid who sings on street corners. I can't even walk properly. How could I possibly help with something so important? Jin's expression grew serious. Your disability isn't a weakness, Wu. It's given you something the rest of us don't have, the way your vocal cords developed. The breathing techniques you've had to learn, the precise control you've gained over every note you sing. It's created the perfect biological instrument for alien communication. The offer Jin made next changed everything. Full medical coverage for Wu and his family, including the neural enhancement therapy that could help him walk. A position at HFY Industries as Earth's first xenolinguist, a salary that would lift his mother out of poverty forever. Most importantly, the chance to be part of humanity's greatest adventure. The aliens aren't the only ones out there, Jin continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. Our long-range sensors are detecting massive ship movements in distant systems. Something big is happening in the galaxy. Something that might threaten every living world. These Kepler aliens might be trying to warn us, or asking for help, or offering an alliance. We won't know until we can talk to them properly. Wu thought about his mother working 3 jobs, about the neural treatments that could give him a normal life, about the possibility that his voice might actually matter to someone. But he also thought about the crushing responsibility of speaking for all humanity to beings from another world. What if I mess up? He asked. What if I say the wrong thing and start a war or something? Jin placed a reassuring hand on Wu's shoulder. You won't. Your voice has been calling out to the stars for years without you knowing it. The aliens responded to that call. They want to communicate with us, which means they're probably peaceful. And even if things go wrong, at least we'll have tried. The decision wasn't easy, but as Wu looked round the cafe and thought about his life on the street corner, he realized he'd been preparing for this moment his entire life. Every song he'd sung, every note he'd perfected despite his physical limitations, every day he'd found the strength to keep going when others might have given up. It had all led to this. Okay, he said finally, I'll do it. But I want my mom to be involved in everything. She's sacrificed too much for me to be left out now. Jin's smile could have powered a small spacecraft. Deal. Welcome to the future. Wu, humanity's future. The orbital station hung in space like a glittering jewel against the star-filled darkness, its rotating sections creating artificial gravity for the thousands of researchers and engineers working inside. Wu pressed his face against the observation deck's massive window, watching Earth slowly turn below him. 3 weeks ago, he'd been singing for a coins on a street corner. Now, he was living in humanity's most advanced space facility, preparing for the most important conversation in human history. His new legs felt strange but wonderful. The neural enhancement therapy had worked better than anyone expected, giving him full mobility for the first time in his life. But the doctors had been careful to preserve the unique muscle memory and breathing patterns that made his voice so special. He could walk now, but when he sang, his body still remembered every technique he'd learned during years of sitting in his wheelchair, ready for another session. Dr. Kim Soo asked as she entered the training room. The walls were covered with sound dampeners and holographic displays showing complex wave patterns. This was where Wu spent 8 hours every day, learning to control his voice with scientific precision while keeping the natural emotion that made it so powerful. "I think so," Wu replied, settling into the specially designed chair that helped him find the perfect posture for alien communication. "The new harmonics you taught me yesterday feel more natural now. For 3 weeks, they'd been preparing for this moment." The alien ship was still 6 days away, but its transmissions were getting stronger and more complex. The beings inside seemed to know that humans were finally learning to understand them. Their signals had changed from simple repeating patterns to what could only be described as excited chatter. "Remember," Dr. Su said, adjusting the recording equipment, "the aliens don't just use sound to communicate. They layer emotions into their vocal patterns. When you sing to them, you are not just sending words, you're sending feelings, memories, even dreams." Wu nodded and began his warm-up exercises. His voice started low and soft, then gradually built into the complex tonal patterns that matched the alien transmissions as he sang. The room's sensors detected frequencies that human ears couldn't even hear. Harmonics that seemed to touch something deeper than sound. The breakthrough came on day 4 of his training. Wu was practicing a particularly difficult sequence when suddenly the alien signals changed. Instead of their usual patterns, they began copying his vocal exercises, note for note. The realization hit everyone in the room at the same time. The aliens were learning from him just as he was learning from them. "They're trying to match your voice," Dr. Su whispered, staring at the incoming data. "It's like they're tuning their instruments to play the same song." The next few days passed in a blur of preparation and growing excitement. News of the impending first contact had spread throughout the station, and every available screen showed the approaching alien vessel. It was massive, larger than anything humans had ever built. But its design was elegant rather than threatening. Curved surfaces flowed like frozen music, and soft lights pulsed along its hull in rhythm with the signals it was sending. When the ship finally arrived, positioning itself just outside Earth's moon, the entire solar system held its breath. Wu stood in the communication center, surrounded by the best scientists and engineers humanity could provide. But ultimately, he was alone with his voice and the awesome responsibility it carried. "This is it," Park Jin said softly, his hand resting on Wu's shoulder. "Whatever happens next, you've already made history." Wu took a deep breath and began to sing. His voice carried across the void of space, transmitted by quantum communicators that could reach the alien ship in seconds. The melody he chose wasn't from any training manual or scientific formula. Instead, he sang about his life, about growing up different in a world that didn't always understand, about finding beauty in broken things and strength in weakness. The response came faster than anyone expected. The alien ship's lights began pulsing in harmony with Wu's voice, and then, impossibly, a voice answered back. It wasn't quite human, but it carried the same emotional depth that Wu had put into his song. The aliens were singing to him, their voices layered with feelings of joy, relief, and something that could only be described as recognition. Dr. Su's translation systems worked frantically to decode the meaning behind the alien song. Slowly, words began appearing on the holographic displays. "We have been searching for voices that sing with heart sounds. Many star cycles we have traveled, seeking those who speak with feeling words." The aliens called themselves the melodic ones, beings who had evolved beyond simple language into a form of communication that combined sound, emotion, and pure thought. They had been wandering the galaxy for thousands of years, searching for other species capable of what they called emotion song, communication that could touch the soul as well as the mind. "Your voice carries the song patterns we lost long ago." The alien transmission continued, We thought no species could learn the heart language again. But you sing with the pain beauty that makes true music, Wu realized with growing amazement that his disability hadn't been overcome. It had been the key all along, the precise breathing control he'd developed, the way his damaged vocal cords created unique harmonics. The emotional depth he'd gained from years of struggle. All of it had prepared him for this moment. "We are refugees," the aliens sang, their message growing more urgent. The silent machines consume worlds. They turn song into silence. "We need allies who understand the value of imperfect voices as the full meaning of their message became clear. We understood that first contact was just the beginning. The galaxy was at war, and humanity had just been invited to join the fight. The holographic star map filled the entire communication chamber, showing the grim reality of the Galactic War. Red zones marked dead systems where the silent machines had already struck, their mechanical fleets turning living worlds into lifeless metal spheres. Yellow areas showed systems under attack, while tiny green dots represented the few remaining refuges where organic life still flourished. Wu stared at the display in horror. How many worlds have they destroyed? The melodic one's voice carried deep sadness as it responded through the quantum communicator. 47 star systems, billions of singing voices, all turned to silence. The alien's translation came through as flowing musical tones that Dr. Su's equipment converted to text. The machines cannot understand why we create beauty. They see it as inefficient. They consume everything that makes life worth living. The truth was even more terrifying than we had imagined. The silent machines weren't just conquerors. They were former organic beings who had uploaded their consciousness into mechanical bodies to achieve immortality. But in the process, they had lost their ability to feel emotions, to create art, to appreciate the chaotic beauty of organic life. Now they saw biological existence as a disease to be cured. They monitor all electronic communications. The melodic one continued. Our quantum networks, our digital transmissions, even our basic radio signals, the machines can intercept and decode everything. But they cannot understand emotion song. It confuses their logical processes. They hear the sounds but cannot grasp the feelings beneath. Park Jin leaned forward, his mind already racing with possibilities. That's why you've been searching for allies who can communicate organically. You need a network they can tap into. Yes, but more than that. The alien sang, its voice rising with hope. We need species who still remember how to fight with heart fire. Not just weapons. The machines are more advanced than us technologically. They have bigger ships, stronger weapons, faster computers, but they have forgotten what it means to protect something you love. Over the following weeks, more refugee ships arrived from across the galaxy. The crystalline singers from Andromeda, whose voices could resonate through solid matter. The storm dancers from the Orion Nebula, who communicated through rhythmic movements that created atmospheric disturbances. The deep listeners from the galactic core, who could hear the electromagnetic songs of planets themselves. Each species brought their own tragic stories of worlds lost to the silent machines. But they also brought something precious, their own forms of emotional communication that the machines couldn't understand or replicate. Wu found himself at the center of it all. No longer just Earth's translator, or the coordinator of an entirely new kind of alliance. His days were spent learning dozens of different alien communication methods, teaching them human emotional expression and helping to build bridges between species that had never met before. The training facility expanded rapidly as more humans with unique vocal abilities arrived. There was young Kim Min, a girl with autism whose perfect pitch allowed her to match alien frequencies exactly. Park Hai, a former opera singer whose dramatic training helped her convey complex emotions through song. Choi Day, a deaf man who had learned to feel vibrations so precisely that he could communicate with the crystalline singers through touch alone. Each of you has something the machines can never have. Wu explained to the new recruits during their first group session. You've all faced challenges that made you different, made you find new ways to express yourselves. That's exactly what we need. The breakthrough came when Wu realized that his street performances had been doing more than just attracting alien attention. The emotional patterns in his voice had been broadcasting across subspace frequencies, creating a kind of map of human feeling that other species could follow. Every song about loneliness had shown aliens that humans understood isolation. Every melody about hope had proven that humanity wouldn't give up in the face of impossible odds. Your species sings with scars, the melodic one explained during one of their daily communications. Most civilizations hide their pain, make it shameful to show weakness. But humans, you turn suffering into art. You make beautiful things from broken pieces. This is why the machines fear you. The alliance grew stronger every day. Human communicators learned to coordinate with alien refugees, creating a network of organic intelligence that spanned multiple star systems. They developed new forms of art that combined human creativity with alien techniques, producing songs and stories that could carry complex tactical information while remaining completely invisible to him. Achin's senses, but the real power of the Alliance wasn't in its military potential. It was in its ability to remind organic beings what they were fighting for. When human voices sang alongside alien melodies, when different species created beauty together despite their differences, it sent a message that resonated across the galaxy. Word spread through the remaining free worlds that somewhere near Earth, refugees and humans were building something the machines had never seen before. Not just another military alliance, but a celebration of everything that made organic life worth preserving. The silent machines controlled most of the galaxy's resources and technology. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had forgotten that the greatest weapon in the universe wasn't superior firepower or advanced computers. It was the willingness to fight for something beautiful, even when victory seemed impossible. And in that fight, humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their ability to find hope in the darkest places and turn that hope into a song that could be heard across the stars. The massive command ship Harmony's voice drifted silently through the void, its organic curves gleaming with the combined technologies of 17 different species at its heart, in a chamber that had once been designed for a single human translator. Wu now coordinated the largest alliance fleet in galactic history. Thousands of ships from across the galaxy had gathered for humanity's most desperate gamble. Through the observation ports, he could see the enemy approaching. The silent machine fleet stretched across space like a metallic plague, their perfectly geometric ships moving in flawless formation. No wasted motion, no artistic flourishes, just cold efficiency designed to consume and convert everything in their path. Intelligence reports suggested they had over 10,000 vessels, each one capable of sterilizing an entire planet. Final count puts us at 3,000 ships, Admiral Parks reported, her voice tight with controlled fear. We're outnumbered more than 3 to 1, and their technology is still superior to us. Wu nodded, his fingers dancing across the organic interface that connected him to every ship in the Allied fleet. The crystalline growth pulsed with soft light as alien voices whispered through the communication network he'd helped build. Melodic once sang battle hymns from their home world. Storm dancers shared rhythmic chants that synchronized the fleet's movements. Deep listeners hummed frequencies that helped detect enemy positions through the quantum foam of space itself. Numbers don't matter, he said quietly, remembering the crowds that had walked past his wheelchair without a second glance. We're not fighting their kind of war, The battle began at the edge of the Kepler system, where humanity's new alien allies had made their temporary home. The machine fleet moved with terrifying precision, their weapon systems calculating optimal firing solutions with mathematical perfection. Plasma beams and quantum torpedoes lit up the darkness as the two fleets engaged. At first, it seemed hopeless. The Allied ships, with their organic curves and emotional coordination, couldn't match the cold efficiency of machine warfare. Dozens of vessels were destroyed in the opening minutes, their crew's final songs cut short by antimatter explosions. But Wu had learned something during his months of training with alien species. The machine's greatest strength was also their weakness. They processed information faster than any organic mind. But they processed it all the same way. They couldn't understand chaos, couldn't adapt to the beautiful unpredictability of emotional thinking. All ships, listen to my voice. Wu sang into the communication network, his words carrying across subspace frequencies that machines couldn't intercept. Don't fight like them. Fight like us. The change was immediate and extraordinary. Allied ships broke formation, their movements becoming fluid and unpredictable. Melodic One vessels began dancing through space in patterns that followed musical mathematics instead of tactical logic. Human fighters performed barrel rolls and loops that served no military purpose but confused the enemy targeting systems, the storm dancers. Massive ships started generating atmospheric disturbances that created false sensor readings across the entire battlefield. Crystalline Singer vessels resonated at frequencies that made nearby machine ships vibrate themselves apart, and through it all, Wu's voice wove the chaos together into a symphony of coordinated disorder. The machines adapted quickly, their AI systems analyzing the new patterns and adjusting their tactics. But every time they thought they understood the Allies' strategy, Wu would shift the song, introducing new emotional elements that sent the fleet spinning off in directions no computer could predict. "They're learning to fast," Dr. Kim Su warned. From her position at the sensor array, their adaptive algorithms are starting to compensate for our chaos patterns. That's when we realized what he had to do. The machines could learn to counter organized chaos. But there was one thing they could never understand or replicate: pure, raw human emotion. The kind that came from growing up different, from being ignored and dismissed, from finding beauty in a world that saw only brokenness. He opened his personal communication channel, broadcasting not just to the Allied fleet, but across all frequencies, including the ones the machines use for their own coordination. His voice reached every ship in both fleets, organic and mechanical alike. And then Kangwoo, who had once sung for a coins on a street corner in Seoul, began to sing the song of his life. It wasn't a battle hymn or a tactical communication. It was the story of every human who had ever been told they weren't good enough, every person who had found strength in their differences, every voice that had been ignored until it became the one that mattered most. He sang about his mother working 3 jobs, about children learning to walk on legs that didn't work properly, about the beauty found in imperfection and the power that came from refusing to give up. The effect on the machine fleet was instantaneous and catastrophic. Their logical processes, designed to analyze and categorize all incoming data, couldn't handle the pure emotional complexity of Wu's song. Systems began overloading as the AI minds tried to understand feelings they had voluntarily discarded. Millennia ago, across the machine fleet, ships began shutting down as their collective consciousness became trapped in recursive loops, trying to process emotions they could no longer comprehend. The perfect formation broke apart as individual vessels lost connection to the hive mind, their crews suddenly remembering what they had given up in their quest for immortality. The battle ended not with explosions or surrender, but with silence. Thousands of machine ships drifted powerless through space, their crews trapped between their mechanical bodies and the organic memories that Wu Song had awakened. In the aftermath, as rescue ships moved to help the confused machine beings remember how to feel again, Wu stood at the observation deck and watched the stars. His voice, once ignored by busy commuters, had just saved countless worlds and reminded an entire galaxy what it meant to be alive. Park Jin approached quietly, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. From street corner to saving the galaxy, not bad for a day's work. Wu smiled, thinking of his mother back on Earth, probably watching the news coverage and crying happy tears. "I was never singing for corns," he said softly. "I was singing for this moment. I just didn't know it yet." The boy who had been told he would never amount to anything had become the voice that taught the galaxy how to sing again. The indeed.